Oh boy, we got a good one today. So first of all, happy Easter. I watched the most ridiculous movie that I've watched in a long time. I don't even know what to say. Anyway, spoiler alert. You know the drill. Anyway, so let's get into it. It's called Beaster Day. Here comes Peter Cottonhell. About a demonic rabbit that wreaks havoc on a small town population during Easter, essentially. And yeah, it's got a budget of probably like $300 or something like that. It's the saving grace of it that made it not like painful to watch. Like Carnosaur, for example, took itself seriously, and that hurt because, well, it was terrible. This was also terrible. I would argue kind of worse, but more enjoyable to watch because it knows that it's fucking stupid. Anyway. Alright, so we got an opening scene where there's like a wedding and a man's getting married to some woman, and his son goes up and does a speech, but he's completely bitter, and he's like, yeah, mom's like probably like turning tricks now. Good job, dad, marrying this girl who's 20 years younger than you. Just like not having a good time. Storms out of the wedding, starts hitchhiking. His arm gets bitten off by something, and lo and behold, it's this giant rabbit, Peter Cottonhell. I guess is what he's called, apparently. And end scene. And so there are a lot of things like this. There are a lot of scenes where it just shows random people and they just get killed by this rabbit thing. So we have another one where there's what was the other one? Oh yeah, there's a couple who are having a picnic or something, and like there's just so many like random deaths. But anyway, let's get the main people out of the way. So we have Doug, who's he opens his closet and he has like 30 shirts that are exactly the same, that just have like a dog with like the circle and the X through it, so like no dogs shirts, and he has like 30 of the same ones. And apparently he's a dog catcher, so that's his thing. They're called dog catchers in the rye. Like whatever. And he works for this company, and they're giving out trophies for the best dog catcher, and the new recruit Hector wins first place and Doug gets second place, and Doug is like traumatized because he wins every year and he takes it so goddamn seriously, and it's just absolutely, it's ridiculous. But anyway, there's this whole thing where he's just jealous of Hector, and he like goes to shake his hand and say, okay, I'm a good sport, and he shakes his hand and like squeezes it, and it's like just ridiculous. Anyway, whatever. Then there's a couple who are making breakfast, and they get a call from the daughter, and the dad is like, oh god, I'm not here and I don't have money. And so she says to the stepmom basically like, I need to come live with you guys for a few months. I'm not going to be doing acting anymore. I've picked a different career path or whatever. And the stepmom's super nice. She's like, okay, that's cool. You can come. I'll work it out with your dad. And the dad's like, oh, for fuck's sakes. So the dad obviously is not very proud of his daughter. We learn that upon her arrival, she has done like 8 different majors, all of which he's paid for the schooling for, and like not gone anywhere with any of them, and just given up. And now she says, no, but I really know what I want to be now. And he's like, okay, what? She's like, a poet. And he's like, oh my god. So yeah, there's that dynamic. The dad is just like at his wit's ends with his daughter, who doesn't know what the hell she wants to do with life, and she's picking all these things that like won't go anywhere unless you're like really talented. Like acting, for example, it's tough to break into there. Painting, art, all kinds of stuff, dancing, you name it. Anyway, then we get a couple of these random deaths. So we got this goth girl who's wearing lingerie, because why not, right? And she wakes up and like she's basically naked with like lace on, makes herself some lemonade and sits outside and puts around her garden, and then this giant rabbit thing pops up from behind her house, and she screams and she runs, and it attacks her and bites her, and then her eye flies out. Her eye flies out at such velocity and speed that it shatters the window, goes through it, lands in the lemonade, and then her boyfriend's like, honey, where are you? Whatever. Ooh, lemonade. And there's like clearly an eyeball and blood in it, and he takes a drink of it, and he's like, and the eye's like hanging out of his mouth. It's like, oh my god. It's one of those movies that just knows that it's stupid and runs with it. So there's that. What else? Oh yeah, there's another woman who's gardening, and she finds like a trail of carrots, and she's like, damn rabbits. And the giant rabbit shows up, and she's like, and screams, and it rips her shirt off. And then there's like a good like 2 minutes of her standing there screaming, like purposefully jiggling her boobs. Like, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, lo and behold, the rabbit eats her, because, like, let's be real, that's what happens. But just like the gratuitous, like, bare chest shot it's the dumbest shit, but at the same time it's cinematic brilliance. I don't know how else to say it. And then it bites her head off, yeah, so she's dead. The dad and daughter meet up finally, so we're back to the main characters. So daughter's name is Brenda, by the way. So Brenda's meeting with her dad and having lunch and stuff in this diner, and that's when she says, you know, I want to be a poet and whatever. He's like, this is the 8th major that I've done and I paid for you. She's like, Daddy, I'm a flower and you need to water me with your wallet. It's just like, oh my god. Anyway, he's like, listen, you're going to get a job this week or you're out. You're not staying in the house. You're done. You're on your own. She's like, whatever, Daddy. Then we cut to our next random death. We've got a girl on a horse riding her horse, having a good time. Giant rabbit shows up. She screams. The footage they use is like the horse like trotting calmly, but it's supposed to like be like the thing chasing her. By the way, this rabbit is like clearly a marionette, like a really cheaply made marionette, like the way it moves and everything. It's like, if you've ever seen like Thunderbirds or Fireball XL5 or whatever it's called, or those puppet shows that they had back in the day. Thunderbirds is the main one where they move like marionettes clearly. Well, this thing moves clearly like a marionette, and yeah. It's essentially kind of a rabbit in the sense that it has sort of ears and like legs, but it's like a big furry weird kaiju thing, I guess. It's like, I don't know what, like 50 feet tall or something, 50, 60 feet tall, and has like a rabbit skull face, so it's like supposed to be demonic looking, but it's absolutely ridiculous. So horse riding girl, she trots off, but it's supposed to be like she's galloping. Anyway, her torso is now stuck on like a tree, and then it shows the horse, and it's just her legs with like really cheesy blood splurting. So there's our next death. What else happens? So yeah, so Brenda now is applying to the dog catchers in the rye, and she applies the dog, and the boss there of the place is like, okay, so do you have any experience? She's like, no. She's like, okay. He's like, okay, well, have you ever had any experience with like animals at all, like not necessarily catching them? And no. Okay, do you have a license? She's like, yeah, but I haven't driven in like years. He's like, okay, can you wear a hat? She's like, I guess. It's like, all right, you got the job. Report here tomorrow. She gets up. She's like, fuck. So obviously she didn't want the job, but whatever. She got it now. So that is her job. Then we have our next victim. So there's this couple, and one of them's like an avid smoker or whatever, and the girlfriend is like, hey, I thought I told you to stop smoking. He's like, oh, whatever. And he's like, okay, well, whatever, we can go skinny dipping. He's like, oh, sweet. He's like, turn around. And she's like, okay. And she starts stripping, and another full gratuitous nudity scene just for the sake of there being one. But I mean, to be fair, legitimate horror movies do this too, so I get it. Anyway, she strips down and trots off, and he turns around and sees her panties on the ground. He's like, oh, this is the best Easter egg hunt ever. So he's like following this trail of random clothing, and then you see her like naked backside bent behind a tree with her butt in the air, and so he's thinking, oh, sweet deals. Goes for his fly, and as he turns around the corner, she's cut in half, because that's what the rabbit does. It basically rips people in half, essentially. That's like the main attack, and then he gets killed, and then his head gets ripped off, and then smoke comes out of his mouth from his severed head. So okay, so we got that. Oh, I forgot to mention the mayor. So the mayor is like a hippie dude who's just a super, cool guy type dude, but he's a cool guy dick. So like his intro scene to the movie is him walking by a little girl all excited with her lollipop, and he just grabs it and bites it and chews it and gives her the stick and says, "You shouldn't litter," and shit like that. As he's walking up the steps to his like town hall or whatever, some woman's like, "There's a problem. We like don't have a stop sign downtown. There's accidents every day." And he's like, "Listen, why don't you just get a piece of cardboard, get a Sharpie, put stop on it. There's your stop sign. I don't have time for this. Got important mayoring things to do." And so he goes inside, and his chief of police or his commissioner or deputy or whatever you want to call it is in there too, and he's just as stupid, encouraging him. And they're talking about this Easter Day fest or whatever. So essentially they're gonna have a big Easter festival that people come from out of town to go to and whatnot. So it's like a huge thing for this little town or whatever. Then we get another victim. This girl on Instagram or Twitter or whatever texting away, and she's, this is the typical trope of being so absorbed in your phone you don't see what's going on type deal, right? So yeah, she steps over like this dead body, like severed foot and stuff, and comes right across the rabbit. She's like, "Oh my god, I gotta put this on Twitter," as it like disembowels her, and then it shows her on the ground, like her legs over here, her torso over here, like the entrails, and she's just texting it. She's like, "Oh my god, LOL," or something stupid like that, and then dies. It's like, okay, so that's our next victim. So stupid. Then there's like a rock climbing girl who again gets like cut in half. I think, I'm pretty sure that's what happens to most of these people. So she gets killed. And then we have we find out that, what's his name again, Doug, our hero Doug failed police academy training or whatever, as he's training Brenda on his new job that she just got hired for, right? So he's explaining, I didn't make it because, and it turns out that he's like afraid of loud noises or something, and she's like, "Loud noises?" He's like, "Shh, not so loud," and he like freaks out, and it's just ridiculous. It's like, okay, it's the tongue-in-cheek comedy of like a Mel Brooks movie where it's like absolutely ridiculous, but they turn the knob up to like in Spinal Tap it goes to 11, and that's supposed to signify what the best. Well, this is like up to 13. Like, it's friggin' so ridiculous. I'll try to remember some of these jokes, but I don't really remember a lot of them. Then there's one of the dog catchers is sent out to like find some squirrel or something. It's like a pet squirrel. Again, it's another scene that's like kind of inconsequential. It just shows a guy getting killed, basically. So he goes out to find this squirrel that someone's missing, and he keeps referring to it as a tree rat, which is kind of funny. Anyway, he gets killed also, and then there's these two maintenance workers because they're told to go get this giant egg. So what happened previously is there's a bunch of reporters saying there's animal attacks, whatever, there are issues and whatnot, and he's like, no, it's like the Amish don't know how to use tools, and they're just like killing themselves with rakes. What? That's literally what it is. He goes through this whole thing of like releasing a line of safety tools. So he's got like a hammer wrapped in bubble wrap and like a belt sander, but there's like whipped cream all over it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, he just brushes it off. Excuse me. Brushes it off and dismisses it and whatnot, because he's the best mayor that's ever lived, clearly. What happens after that? Oh yeah, there's a giant egg. Obviously this is what like Peter Cottonhell has hatched from, but it's a giant egg and there's like blood on it, and they're like, "Well, what's that?" And the mayor's like, thinking to himself, "I don't really know. That's for the festival. Yeah, it's a decoration. Just don't worry about it." And then later he sends some maintenance guys to go get this giant egg and bring it to the main festival area, and they're like talking about how much of a cheapskate he is and all that stuff. Like, clearly, again, the best mayor that's ever mayored in the history of mayordom. They get killed, clearly, obviously. Anyway, they Doug and Brenda eventually are sent to go catch the creatures that killed the other guy that was going after the tree rats. I can't remember if I even talked about that, but yeah, the tree rat guy, he got killed. Anyway, they go to, find him or whatever. Oh no, okay, so Hector gets killed too, like the number one dog catcher. He gets killed and he trips over a rock and like gets stabbed by his own dog catching trophy that he brought with him on this catch, I guess, and the rabbit, cuts him in half. But anyway, so Doug and Brenda are sent to investigate his death, catch the wild dogs or wolves or whatever that like killed him. And Doug ends up seeing this giant rabbit, and she sees the rabbit. That's what it is. I don't remember. Like, she doesn't believe in the rabbit first, and then she sees it and she runs anyway. So she sees the rabbit, runs past him, knocks Doug down. Doug's like, "Oh my god, my love, are you okay?" Because he's like absolutely in love with her, by the way. Little side note, she's not interested. She was actually interested in Hector before he was killed, and he went on this whole thing of saying that, like, no, he's his girlfriend wouldn't be happy about that or whatever. And she's like, he has a girlfriend? And he's like, no, he actually has a tattoo on his back saying "enter here" or something like that. And along lines of like he's gay. And she's like, really? And he's like, yeah, I would know. And she's like, oh, you would know, would you? And he's like, no, I mean, anyway, there's a whole thing. See, I'm getting lost here. It's just such a ridiculous movie. Anyway, long story short, let's just cut to the chase because I'm already wasted more time on it than I should. So long story short, Doug is running around screaming, telling everyone there's a giant rabbit on the loose and it's killing people, and no one's believing him. Like, you're not going to believe that. He knocks on some guy's house and he's like yelling at the guy, and the guy comes over the bat like, "Shut the fuck up, what do you want?" And he's like, "There's a giant rabbit coming this way, blah, 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 blah." He's like, "Oh yeah, you got a picture?" It's like, well, no. He's like, "Oh, that's funny. All these people everywhere in the world with a cell phone now, and you still can't get a damn picture of Bigfoot." And Doug right away is like, "He's very elusive." "Get off my property or I'll kick the shit out of you." Anyway, so he bolts. He gets put in a psych ward, basically, looking out over the Easter festival, because no one believes him, and he's clearly lost his mind, or you would think in reality, right? But lo and behold, the rabbit shows up and attacks the Easter festival, and stomps on the mayor, and then when he hops on the mayor, and then when he jumps off, the mayor's blood is in like a peace symbol on the ground. Hops on a fat guy, and he gets squished, and it's just hopping on people and swiping people's arms and legs off, and it's like the cheesiest deaths ever. Like, there's a guy standing there, and then they like cut and pasted, or they cut like in MS Paint, essentially they took the guy's body and removed it, and then just a little blood coming from like his feet that are still standing there. It's just magnificent. Anyway, so Brenda's like, okay, well, I gotta deal with this. She goes home to her dad. She's like, "Dad, we gotta leave." And he's like, "You're leaving again? Seriously? Like, you're not sticking to anything? What about this poetry thing?" Meanwhile, she just walked in on him with a bib tied up with the stepmom with a fishing rod with a piece of bacon on it. So some weird sex thing. Anyway, she doesn't care about that clearly that much. But he's like, "Listen, you're not going anywhere, blah, blah." He's like, "Okay, well, if I'm going to stay here, where do you keep the guns?" And he's like, "What?" She's like, "Well, I told you there's a giant rabbit, so where are the guns?" He's like, "In the basement." So she goes and grabs a shotgun. And she breaks out Doug, because Doug will do anything for her, so I guess she figures, well, I'll use that to my advantage. Anyway, she gives him a carrot costume and says, "Put this on." He's like, "Why?" It's like, "Because you'll look yummy." And he's like, "Okay, that makes sense." He ends up luring the rabbit, and he runs, and it's chasing him, and she's on a roof ready for it, shoots it in the head 3 times, rabbit's dead. Doug runs up, kicks it a couple times, and then like puts his leg on it all proud, like, "Yeah, I killed it." And she's just like, what an absolute tool. Anyway, they reconvene down on the ground, and he's like, "So, how'd you feel about dating a hero?" And she's like, "Ew. And besides, aren't you gay?" And he's like, "Oh." And she's like, "How do you think it got so big?" And then the credits roll, live of them going, for like the entire length of the credits in the background. And as ridiculous as the movie is, the fact that they didn't like break out laughing for just having to ponder how it got so big for the entire credits, good on them. Oscar worthy. Now, my thoughts. It's fucking stupid. It's not a good movie, but it's entertaining, if that makes sense. It's definitely one of those so bad that it's... Well, I don't want to say good, but so bad that it's entertaining. And it's self-aware. So, what am I going to rate it, though? Oh, boy. As a movie, despite the self-awareness, some of the jokes are kind of funny, I have to admit. I was laughing a fair amount. It's not good. I'm going to give it a 3. Like, flat out 3. Should you watch it? No, man. Well, you know what? Yeah, actually you should. I changed my mind. Despite it being a 3, you should absolutely watch it. It's available on Tubi and that FAWESOME channel thing that I watched the Deadly Mantis on. That has like a billion commercials. And legitimately, like... it's not even individual, like, unique commercials. Some are, like, super loud. Like, whoever's putting these commercials just takes them directly from the client and throws them on there and puts, like, random shuffle, I think. Because there was this commercial for Veoza or something like that. Some, like, medical supplement drug. And it was, like, 4 times in a row straight. And it's like, oh my god. And there was another commercial that was so fucking loud I had to mute it. Because, like, it was 17 times louder than the movie. Anyway, I should have watched it on Tubi, but I didn't know it was on Tubi until after. So anyway, watch it on Tubi if you're going to watch it, because there will be less commercials and there'll be more organization to that. And that's all I got for you today. So happy Easter. Ridiculous fucking movie. 3 out of 10. But you absolutely should watch it. For the sheer madness. Alright, bye.